Baseball at Miami has a storied history, evolving from a crooked field. And thanks to gifts from donors and friends, Miami baseball has become what it is today. Who better to give a little Miami baseball history lesson than Mr. Baseball himself, Mr. Don Crain.
Miami varsity intercollegiate baseball started in 1915. And right back here on the same piece of ground that McKee Field at Hayden Park is on, only the home plate was oriented in the right field corner at that time. We didn't have dugouts. We didn't have an electronic scoreboard. We didn't have a press box. We didn't really have bleachers. Oftentimes the coaches had the same locker room as the players, and that got interesting at times when things didn't go well.
We understand that you have not just given us this Miami baseball tradition or given us these dream facilities, yet you have entrusted them to us.
This isn't just a baseball facility. It's a home to these players. It's a home away from home. And a lot of former players and supporters of the program came together to make this happen. And we're hoping that through all of these new facilities that our student athletes will be also in addition to being better players, better students, and better people.
As the saying goes, to whom much is given, much is expected. We realize these expectations, and now it is time for us to get to work.
Miami baseball is special for a couple of reasons. Number one is the university. It's a great university. It's a great place to get a wonderful degree. It's a great place to be as a student and as a student athlete. And I've really enjoyed watching kids come in as freshmen, green, they don't know a thing, and leaving 4 or 5 years later as sophisticated young men who have a great future ahead of them because of their Miami degree and what they've learned in baseball. I love it because for these guys, they're playing for the love of the game and for their school. It's not a job and it's not a profession. And you can see that in their effort.
Miami's baseball program has not only developed talented and productive citizens, but has been the spark for many to lead successful major league careers.
Dan McKee played baseball for 4 years, was the captain of the baseball team in 1919, his senior year. And he loved baseball and he loved Miami baseball. He was also on the Miami Board of Trustees for 19 years, serving the university in many other capacities. And he was also a state senator for his district for 10 years. Charlie Leibrandt was a pitcher at Miami and he pitched for the Royals and the Braves. But he was not a fastball pitcher, but he had tremendous command and he was a very crafty pitcher. Lloyd Hauser signed him as a scout for the Reds, and Charlie had a wonderful career with several major league teams. And Chris Sexton was one of the best hitters. He set all the hitting records and played mostly for the Cincinnati Reds, made it up to the major leagues. He's been a wonderful Miamian and very helpful to the coaches over the years. Walter Alston, the greatest manager in Dodger history. He played at Miami from 1932 to 1935. He was a shortstop and a pitcher. He played in the minor leagues for several years and made it to the major leagues for a couple of years as a 32-year-old new manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers. When he was appointed the manager, nobody knew who he was, but 2 years later everybody knew who Walter Alston was because the Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series. And then he went on with the Dodgers in Los Angeles and ended up winning pennants and 2 world championships. One of the most poignant statements made about Buddy Schultz and his value to Miami is our former coach Bud Middaugh said that once he recruited Buddy Schultz, he started getting blue chip players. We have the baseball that Buddy Schultz used in the April 3rd, 1971 26 strikeout game, which is still an NCAA Division I record, and I think a record that will never be broken. But Buddy was, above all, a great teammate and perhaps one of the most competitive human beings I've ever met. He was by far our best pitcher and by far our best player. He worked as hard or harder than everybody else, and he just had respect for anybody that hustled and played hard and wanted to win. He had a wonderful major league career. His best year was with St. Louis. He was the only left-hander on their staff, and he warmed up or pitched in 152 of 162 games.
And the success continues. The major leagues have been home to 26 Miami baseball players and counting.
Joe Nuxhall was a personal friend of mine and my father's. Joe's career began at the age of 15. He's the youngest person ever to pitch in the major leagues. But Joe was important to Miami for a couple of reasons. Number one, he was a volunteer coach during the time that Bud Middaugh was here, and he made our pitchers better. The other reason why Joe is important to Miami is that he got his broadcasting start at Miami. In 1963, he was hired to be the color announcer for Miami basketball, and it paved the way for Joe to become the voice of the Cincinnati Reds. He never said no to any request that Miami ever made. Adam Eaton started out with the Diamondbacks and was traded to the White Sox, and in his first full major league season, Adam batted .300. And then Jack Cusick was a great pitcher here at Miami, still holds records. Still holds Miami pitching records. He spent the last several years giving of himself, working for Feed the Children in his hometown. Tim Naring played for the Boston Red Sox for years and had a very successful major league career. And was just a fabulous third base. One of our most famous players is Bill Doran. Bill Doran was signed by Houston and had a tremendous career with Houston for 10, 11 years. But he also came back and coached with Tracy Smith for a couple of years as a volunteer coach and helped us develop our hitting skills.
In 2006, Don Crain founded Miami's Baseball Alumni Association, creating a bond among these players to last for decades to come.
My partner in crime in all this was Dave Young, because Dave was the sports information director for Miami. But he and now his wife will tell you that there is no doubt in the world that his favorite sport at Miami was baseball. We were sitting in the Dave Young press box about 10 years ago, and I turned to Dave and I said, Dave, what's going to happen when we're not around anymore? You know, who's going to keep this up? So I ran the idea by Dave of starting an alumni association for former players and coaches. And the core of it is that it was intended not to be a fundraising operation, but a fraternal organization of former players to help one another and to help our recent graduates get their first jobs and help them along in their career. Kind of a brotherhood, if you will, like the hockey guys have. We have over 100 members, hopefully through this organization and through what we're doing in this building, in the Players Lounge, and creating those bonds that will help our players not only get their first jobs, but help them through their careers. I think once you join the Miami baseball program, you're a member of the family for life. It doesn't end for you when you graduate or when you go on to the major leagues. It can continue and should continue and hopefully will continue for the rest of your life.